Hello again. We're here today with Stefan from the European Shepherds Network. So could you just describe a little bit about what your network does and your role within that network?
Basically, I'm a voluntary coordinator. So
Hmm.
we are it's a complete like a non-profit organization. So we are all doing this like voluntarily.
Hmm.
Um, and the European Shepherd Network is a network of shepherds organizations. So it's an organization that represents national shepherd union. Um, Also local pastoralism network, but it's really a grassroots movement. It's the only European grassroots movement about pastoralism that has almost only shepherds as its core members.
Hmm.
So it's not like a technical NGO who are very important to also to our work. We work with them, but it's like a movement from the base. So
And
we represent. I mean, we have a network. 17, I think now, shepherds organization from all over Europe.
how long have you been going as a grassroots network?
So this project started. Well, it has a long history, but I've been working on it since 2012, where there was a meeting with, at the time, it was seven representatives from seven different countries. So shepherd leaders
Hmm.
who are sort of managing like unions or at least very representing their communities, very respected by their communities, who met in Germany in Kassel,
Yeah.
um, basically to acknowledge that to for the shepherd way of life to survive, for this profession to survive, there needed to be a joint action at the European level, because then they felt that it was not enough to campaign amongst their communities or their regional networks or even the countries, but because if you want to understand, because the regulation and the drivers that are affecting the agricultural world in Europe today are basically decided in Brussels.
Mm.
So now all the decisions that concern farming and pastoralism in particular basically have a European origin. So that explain this need to organize at the European level.
So you say Brussels makes the majority of decisions.
Yeah.
Does the EU tend to favour your cause, or does it tend to favour more industrialised farming methods?
Yeah, I saw you. I saw your question. Actually, the EU is neither really opposed or sympathetic. It's an arena of lobbyists, if you want. So it's a rapport de force between different lobbying forces. And yes, we can say that at the moment, and since different decades, actually, since the CAP, the Common Agrarian Policy, has been effective, the regulations do favor industrialized or intensive farming
Mm-hmm.
and intensive livestock farming in particular. So the regulations are not definitely not in favor of extensive livestock keeping or pastoralism, or there's different configurations, but generally speaking, it's not in favor of small scale livestock farming.
Mm-hmm.
Because of regulations, because the regulation is appropriate to large scale intensive farming. Um, so there is a lot of bureaucracy that is effective in a sense for big farms, but really a waste of time and a waste of money and a real burden for shepherds or small scale livestock keeper. And generally speaking, the fact that the agrarian model that was developed since 4 or 5 decades in Europe is industrialization and concentration of land, of capital, of means, makes it very difficult for the traditional pastoralist to compete.
So is traditional pastoralism endangered then, in a sense?
Very much so. This is why we have this sense of urgency to preserve this productive model. But it's not just a productive model; it's also a way of life. It's even cultural heritage, you could say, because I mean we are almost all born after Second World War, so basically most of us born in cities. So we quite forgot that since 10,000 years, actually, our European landscape, we inherited from pastoralism. So the landscapes we see have been shaped by pastoralism. When you go in the countryside and you see a meadow with flowers, this biodiversity, this biosphere, is completely inextricable from pastoralism. So the fact that the animals graze and rotate in the year, this has shaped the biosphere very much, and we forget that, and we forget that it's actually our culture. We come from that. I mean, the sedentary urban way of life is very recent if you compare it to the history of the continent. And now, if you discuss with animal keepers or shepherds in Germany, in France, in Spain, in Italy, apart from the more like intensive or like larger farms, you will feel this kind of sense of despair, of anger, of sadness, that this way of life is actually disappearing, and it feels almost out of control, because when you are in a market economy, things just you have no control on what's happening, on the price, on the cost, on the regulation. Especially now, the lack, if you want, the lack of consultation of pastoralism, who are users of the land and who are kind of maintainers of the land, is increasing because of this. All this bureaucracy, and also the management of the land is increasingly done without consulting pastoralists. For example, this can be seen in the problematic reintroduction or support to wild fauna. As a network, we are not like 100% against wild fauna, but our position is that shepherds, pastoralists should be consulted in this process of designating like nature conservation areas or protected natural parks. So this is very much what the feelings that you can encounter is that it's a profession that is basically maintaining the European landscape, maintaining the biodiversity, and that has shaped the European traditions and culture. But it's eroding, and there is very much a loss of control, or even a loss of possibility for action to keep it alive. So we are trying to address this a lot.
Is your organisation more sort of an internal organisation among shepherds and pastoralists, or can the public also help your cause?
Until now, very much so, because the first thing, and that ties with your work as translators, because very much so it has been a matter of getting the communication going between different partners in different countries, and getting to realize that there is an interest to work together across the borders, and if you want to react to European policy at the European level, it makes sense. But it has been a slow process, because that's the moment when the translation comes in. It's because in Europe there is no common language, and this is the first thing if you want to communicate, is to have common language, a common means of expression to share the problems, because the problems are very much the same all over Europe. I mean, bureaucracy, the loss of access to land, industrialization of farming, the problem with the reintroduction of wild fauna without consulting pastoralists. All these problems are very much the same. The reactions are very similar from country to country, but there was no consciousness of this. So maybe for the first few years of the network, so since the very beginnings, which were before Kassel, I didn't tell you about because it would be too long, but maybe let's say 2008 with a first meeting in Frankfurt. So since all these years, the first steps were to create, to open a space for communication between the members, to gain this consciousness of united campaign, of a united struggle. It's really a social struggle now, and for that it has been very helpful to work with you as translators, because and I'm doing kind of side story there, but as the ESN, the European Shepherd Network, we are the European chapter of a larger organization. So we are independent, of course, but we are working also with on a global project, which is called WAMIP. So a World Alliance for Mobile Indigenous People. So it's also about pastoralism, but global. So you have it brings together pastoralist representatives and communities from Central Asia, Mongolia, South Africa, Southern Africa, Western Africa, Eastern Africa, South America as well, like all the Andes. Also communities in the North America, in the US. So kind of a global project which is focused on pastoralism and also indigenous people. But you can almost regard shepherds in Europe as an indigenous people, because it's a people that is deeply linked with its territory, with the biosphere. It evolves inside the biosphere. It has like a specific tradition and culture, and it's endangered. So it's almost, you can say, an indigenous form in Europe that we are acting to save today. And in most regions of the world, whether Asia, whether West Africa with French, and Central Africa with French, or East Africa with English, South America with Spanish, most regional networks can communicate because they share a language. Okay, it's not the space to discuss, okay, French in Africa has been inherited from colonialism. Okay, we know that, but at least there is communication. In Europe, it's quite unique in the world. It's very difficult to have people from, for example, the Carpats in the Balkan country, or shepherds from Germany, or farmers from, as we were saying, the Sierra Norte around Madrid, to communicate, because there is no shared language. So that takes a lot of time. And this is where translation is useful. But last year we came up with a new European gathering which happened in Koblenz in Germany, and we decided to open some of it to the public, and it was very successful, because at the moment there is a good support from the public opinion towards animal keeping, animal farming, and also making good food, quality products. There is the whole slow food movement you might have heard about in Italy, coming from Italy, which is about returning to this idea of terroir, as we say in French. So how producing quality food from the territory and deeply connected to the territory.
So hopefully our volunteers who helped you out on the project will be watching this video. If you could reach out to them and say, what would you say to them?
Good question. I wasn't aware of that. It's good. Actually, I have one simple thing to say. I think Europeans, but not only Europeans, but I think your volunteers are mostly based in Europe, probably. I guess I'm not wrong in saying that we'll all have an ancestor, maybe a grandfather or great grandfather, or if you go back in the family, you will have someone who was a shepherd or who was working in the farm, who was working from the land and with the land, so with nature. And so I think the work that we are doing and the work that's translating to help these communities to get this struggle together and really, it's really about keeping this way of life alive. I mean, we don't want it to end up in anthropological museum. For us, it's about, especially in these times where Europe is, I mean, so everyone is completely disappointed by Europe. For us, it's about of proposing an alternative cultural model for Europe. So it's very deep, and I think because we have this, all of us almost have this family link with this way of life, we can relate.
Yeah.
To that, and it's also a matter of, just keeping connected with our past, with our ancestors.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, well, thank you very much for you've really spoken well, and
I try my best.
and you've explained to me a lot about what you do, and it's been very interesting talking to you. So thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks, Thomas. Well, I'm happy it's helped understanding what we try to do, and thanks. And I think I'll be in touch because, yeah, as I said, we have events coming up. So, slowly, we're doing small things, but definitely there is potential, and we're trying our best.
Yeah, we'll be more than happy to help you out.
Okay.
Anything else you need.
Fantastic.
So, thank you very much.
Thanks to you, Thomas, and have a good day.
Bye.